Hello everyone! Last week we talked about the first part of Kael'thas' story, which was about the origin of the High Elves, some of the events that Kael'thas took part in, all the way to the moment that Arthas assaulted Khayllys, corrupted the Sunwell by resurrecting Kael'thas and forcing the now Blood Elves to blow up their Sunwell. This week we're going to continue the storyline, but before we can talk about Kael'thas, we'll first have to talk about some very important events that happened after the fall of Khayllys. So let's dive right into it and let's begin, shall we? The necromancer Kael'thas was resurrected and put on the task of summoning Archimonde into the world of Azeroth. This was the next step in the Burning Legion's plan of conquering the planets, and the summoning was successful. Archimonde arrived and simply destroyed the city of Dalaran, and afterwards he set his eyes on the ancient enemies of the Legion, the Night Elves and the World Tree Nordrassil. Remember that 10,000 years ago the Night Elves and Kael'thas' ancestors, they stood together against the Burning Legion, and Archimonde remembered that they were a great threat to their plans. Tyrande Whisperwind had also fought in that war, and when she realized that Archimonde had returned, it was time to awaken her beloved Malfurion Stormrage from the Emerald Dream. Even the so-called betrayer Illidan Stormrage was released from his prison, and all of them worked against the Legion, although each did it in their own way. Luckily for the Night Elves, they would not stand alone. The resurrected and now uncorrupted Guardian Medivh, he'd gathered both the Horde and the survivors of Lordaeron, led by Jaina Proudmoore. Together, they held off Archimonde long enough for Malfurion to set his trap, and in the end, they blew up the World Tree, they destroyed the Night Elves' immortality, but they also stopped Archimonde and the Legion's invasion. This did not end the story of Warcraft 3 though. Since releasing Illidan, it had helped them against the Legion, but his warden Maiev Shadowsong, she could not let him go. On top of that, Illidan had gone further towards the dark side by absorbing the skull of Gul'dan, and now even his appearance was that of a demon. Banished by his own twin brother, things were not looking good for Illidan. He was now on his own mission, since after he did his part fighting against the Legion, he was contacted by Kil'jaeden himself.
Illidan, in the past you have been both friend and foe to the Burning Legion. But by consuming the skull of Gul'dan, you sealed our defeat in this world. I come to offer you a second chance to serve us.
What would you have me do, Great One?
My creation, the Lich King, has betrayed me. He dared to break the pact that binds him to my will. But his spirit still lies trapped inside the frozen throne of Icecrown. Destroy it for me, and I will grant you your heart's desire.
It shall be done, Great One. It shall be done.
Ner'zhul, the Lich King, the one who had corrupted Arthas, manipulated events behind the plague. He never wanted to work for Kil'jaeden or the Legion, and he was working on breaking out. Illidan was put on the task of destroying the Lich King in Northrend, and to complete his mission, he would require some allies. He did his magic to summon the Naga from the depths, the Naga who used to be Highborn that stayed at Queen Azshara's side. To destroy the Lich King, Illidan decided to enter the Tomb of Sargeras, collect the Eye of Sargeras, which is an artifact to power his spell and give him enough power to complete the task. He managed to collect the item, but his warden Maiev Shadowsong, the one who had kept him imprisoned for 10,000 years, she was hot on his tail. She, together with Tyrande and Malfurion, they were trying to stop Illidan, bring him to justice, which finally brings us to the moment where Kael'thas enters the story. Despite stepping away from Dalaran and the Council of Six, as he had informed Jaina that he was leaving there, Kael'thas had decided to join the remaining military of Lordaeron to fight against the undead. He and his people had discovered that blowing up the Sunwell, it might have stopped the corruption, but it also left a hunger deep inside. They were addicted to the magic, to their fountain of power, but Kael'thas had bigger things to worry about right now, since he was trying to escort his caravan away from the approaching undead. Moving wasn't that easy though, undead troops were everywhere, but thankfully Kael'thas met with Tyrande and Maiev, who offered him their help.
Ishnu Daldieb, Kael'thas. I am Maiev Shadowsong, and this is Tyrande Whisperwind. We are hunting a powerful demon that arrived here recently.
Curious. I don't know about any demon, but something's riled the undead based at Dalaran. They've been hounding us day and night. We were about to abandon this post and seek refuge on the other side of the river Arabas.
Then we shall lend you our aid, young Kael.
Wait, we have no time for this.
Maiev was obsessed with hunting down Illidan, and she disagreed with Tyranda's choice of offering help to Kael'thas, but Tyrande remembered the part his ancestors played during the War of the Ancients, and they would honor that debt. On top of that, Kael'thas would help them track down Illidan after their escort mission was complete, so they set out together. All was going well, until they arrived at Pyrewood. The undead ambushed them, and there was no way that the caravan would survive another assault. Tyrande told Kael'thas to get his caravan across the bridge, while she would hold off the undead. Blessed by the powers of Elune, Tyrande was able to stand up against the endless stream of undead, but the bridge beneath her feet crumbled and the river dragged her away.
We must hurry to save her. That current will take her straight into the heart of the undead lands.
No, Kael. Tyrande is a soldier. She knew the risks she took. We have a greater mission to accomplish now, and our time grows short. Your people are now safe. You will uphold your end of the bargain and help me hunt the demon I seek.
Maiev would let nothing stand in the way of capturing Illidan. Back at base, he told Malfurion that Tyrande had fallen, that she had fought valiantly, but in the end was torn apart in front of her own eyes. Malfurion was devastated and furious at Illidan, since his twin brother was the reason why they came here in the first place, was the reason for losing his beloved. In the meantime, Kael'thas' scouts had found Illidan at the ruins of Dalaran, where he was working a spell so powerful that it would not only destroy the Lich King, it was tearing Northrend apart. Together, the three of them rode out to confront Illidan, but Maiev's lie would quickly catch up to her.
Illidan Stormrage, for recklessly endangering countless lives and threatening the very balance of the world, I hereby sentence you to death.
Too much blood has been spilled on your account, Illidan. Even now, I can feel the lands of Northrend reeling from the spell you cast. Imprisonment will not be enough this time.
I will execute him myself.
Fools! Can you not see? The spell we channeled was meant to strike at the undead, our common enemy. My mission was to destroy the Lich King's stronghold of Icecrown.
And no heed to the cost! Because of you, Tyrande is dead!
What?
Your pardon, Lord Stormrage, but the priestess may still be alive. She was swept downriver, but it's premature to simply assume
Silence,
that...
Kael.
You told me she was torn apart. You lied to me.
There was still a chance that Tyrande had survived, and Malfurion teamed up with his twin brother to go and rescue his beloved. Illidan had also loved Tyrande, even though she did not feel the same for him, and their mission was successful. Now, failing his mission given by Kil'jaeden, failing to destroy the Lich King, had left Illidan with a big problem, since Kil'jaeden did not easily forgive, nor did he forget. He decided to leave Azeroth behind and jump into a portal to the destroyed homeworld of the Orcs, the planet of Outlands. Right behind him, Maiev quickly followed, since she couldn't let go of her prey and she wanted to bring Illidan to justice. Meanwhile, Kael'thas Sunstrider didn't really play a role in these events. He'd stayed behind and he met up with Othmar de Gerifos, Grand Marshal of the Lordaeron's military.
You are late, Prince Kael'thas. I thought you elves prided yourselves on punctuality.
It could not be helped, Lord Garithos. We ran into a group of night elves from across the sea, and...
I am not interested in your fanciful excuses. You elves are here to serve the Alliance. Thus you will obey my commands to the letter. Is that clear?
Yes, Lord Garithos.
Now, the undead have begun a new offensive to retake Dalaran. Their primary strike force marched south through Silverpine, but we managed to halt its advance at the base of the mountains.
My men are ready to fight, my lord. When shall we leave for the front?
We will be leaving immediately, but your people will be staying here. Our scouts report that a second strike force may be heading this way from the east. I need you to repair the outlying observatories so that we can monitor that region.
But, my lord, we are warriors, not...
You have your orders, Prince Kael'thas. I trust your elven ears heard them clearly enough. Move out!
Insolent son of a... Let's get this over with.
Kael'thas, let's just say blunt, he was a racist asshole placed in a position more for his father's reputation and title than due to his own abilities. In the past, while fighting to defend Quel'Thalas against the first Orcish horde invasion, a band of orcs broke from the invading force and they murdered Kael'thas' family. Kael'thas had always blamed the elves for the loss of his home and family, and he was now abusing his position and his power while taking out on Kael'thas and the Blood Elves. Instead of using them to their full potential in the front line as the fighting force that they were, he put them on the task of repairing observatories. This task was near impossible since they would need a gold mine to get a base running, and this gold mine was located on the other side of the lake.
Damn. We'll have to find a way across the lake to reach the outlying gold mine. Naga, you fought for the demon Illidan.
We are on our own now, good prince. I am called Lady Vash. My brethren and I come in peace to offer you our aid.
You have nothing I need, witch.
Is that so? I thought you might require boats to reach the observatories you seek.
And you would give these freely? Why should I trust you, my lady?
Our two races share a common ancestry, Kael. Now, against the undead, we share a common peril. These boats are merely a gesture of goodwill.
Then, I accept your offer. Thank you.
Lady Vash, Illidan's ally and leader of the Naga, offered her aid to Kael'thas and his people, and Kael'thas accepted. Kael'thas returned from the front lines and was not pleased with Kael'thas' actions.
Hail, Lord Kael'thas. The observatories have been repaired as you requested. We were just about to...
I received ill news from the front line. Is it true that you've consorted with the vile Naga?
Well, yes, my lord. They helped us cross the lake. I assure you they pose no threat to us or to...
They are inhuman and must be crushed like any other enemy. Be careful where you place your loyalties, Blood Elf. I will not tolerate treason in my ranks. Now I must return to the front. You will remain here and wait for further orders.
Kael'thas already had no love for Kael'thas and his elves, and he despised the Naga even more. Kael'thas is told to be careful now, to not accept any more help from the Naga, but his next mission placed him with an impossible choice. He was ordered to crush the undead forces before the rest of the troops would march on Dalaran, but he had to do it without his foot soldiers, without the cavalry, without any support teams, as they were needed at the front lines.
This is preposterous. Am I to assault the undead with nothing but sticks and harsh language?
The Grand Marshal has great confidence in your abilities. Be creative.
Kael'thas, I'm starting to hate that man.
Naturally, he had no troops. The undead, they quickly demolished the established bases, and Kael'thas was struggling. Luckily for him, Lady Vash and the Naga were once again willing to offer him aid. The prince didn't want to anger Kael'thas further or accept the help from the Naga, but in this situation, he saw no other option. Together with Vash and their forces, they were able to successfully crush the undead and complete his mission.
You have my thanks, lady. This victory would not have been possible without your aid, though I fear I may have doomed myself by accepting it.
The human you served trusts no race but his own. His sense of honor runs no deeper than his tolerance.
It is loyalty and duty that bind me to him, and to this failing alliance. But now those tenets seem as distant as our ruined homeland. All I know is that my brethren and I hunger for something more.
Then perhaps, young Kael, it is time to find a new path to power and glory.
I can't explain it exactly, but ever since our homeland was destroyed, my brethren and I have felt empty, almost drained of our spirit. There is a hunger now that has hardened our hearts.
I know this hunger, Kael. Like us, your people are addicted to magic. It flowed through your veins for over 10,000 years. And now, with the corruption of your land and the Sunwell that empowered you,
we have been cut off from our power, from our birthright. Without a new source of magic, my people will surely die.
There are other founts of power in this world, Kael. demons, for instance.
You speak of madness, my lady. We will never be that desperate.
Grand Marshal Kael'thas has returned, and Kael tells Vash to go since he can't guarantee her safety. Kael'thas saw the Naga escape, and now he had all the proof he needed to execute every traitorous blood elf present. Kael'thas and his people were imprisoned, and they were placed within the dungeons of Dalaran to await their execution. Where once he was a respected member of the Council of Six, now they were getting ready to take his life, but once again it's Vash to the rescue. She liberated the prince and offered him a choice. He could either stay here and be slain by the humans, or he could follow her into a darker path which would lead to a whole different world and a whole new destiny. She promised Kael'thas an answer to their burning hunger for magic, so the choice, it was easily made. Together they released the other blood elves, they held the portal as Kael'thas tried to stop them, and finally Kael'thas and Vash, they stepped through into Outlands. There they found out that the warder Maiev, she'd managed to capture Illidan and was escorting him back to his prison. It seemed like the blood elves would right away be able to prove their worth, so they liberated Illidan and they captured Maiev instead. Afterwards, Kael'thas explained who he was, why he had come, and he asked for Illidan's aid.
You were right to come to me, Kael. I share the pain of your addiction, your hunger for magic.
Can you help us, Lord Illidan? Can you cure us?
There is no cure, young one. But there are ways to feed the hunger. Follow me and I will grant your people more magic than they can imagine.
So be it. Lord Illidan, my fellow Blood Elves and I humbly pledge ourselves to your service.
Then arise, young Kael. You shall be my right hand, and the harbinger of my wrath.
What of your plans, Master?
Illidan explained to Kael'thas about the task he was given by Kil'jaeden. Considering that his mission had failed, Illidan decided that the best course of action was to take over Outlands and hope that Kil'jaeden, he would not be able to find them. To do this, they first cut off MacFarredan from more reinforcements by closing the portals he was using to summon more demons into Outlands. They also teamed up with the Broken Akama, a former Draenei who had fought in the war against the Orcs. They had taken over his beloved temple of Karabor, they turned it into the Black Temple, and for this, he was more than willing to throw in his lot with Illidan, and all of their forces combined were able to take out the orcs, the demons, and even overthrow MacFarredan himself. The Black Temple was theirs, Illidan claimed the title of Lord of Outlands, but hiding away from someone like Kil'jaeden, it was not so simple.
What is this, Vash? Where did this storm come from?
Keep your head down, fool. Something terrible is drawing near.
Foolish little mongrel. You failed to destroy the frozen throne as I commanded. And still you thought to hide from me in this forsaken backwater. I thought you to be more cunning, Illidan.
Kil'jaeden, I was merely set back. I was attempting to bolster my forces. The Lich King will be destroyed. I promise you.
Indeed. Still, these servitors you've gathered show some promise. I will give you one last chance, Illidan. Destroy the frozen throne, or face my eternal wrath.
Perhaps hiding here was not the most prudent decision. Still, the quest lies before us. Will you follow me into the cold heart of death itself?
The Naga are yours to command, Lord Illidan. Where you go, we follow.
The Blood Elves are yours as well, Master. We will drive the Scourge before us and shatter the frozen throne as you command.
And so their mission was clear. Illidan Stormrage, Lady Vash and Kael'thas Sunstrider returned to Azeroth and marched upon the cold lands of Northrend to destroy the Lich King once and for all. They were not alone though, since Arthas had been summoned by the Lich King to come back to Northrend as well, so the race was on.
These elves are pathetic. It's no wonder we destroyed their homeland so easily.
Pity I wasn't there to stop you. It's been a long time, Arthas.
Prince Kael'thas, I haven't seen you since... You lead these elves?
This group, at least. What you faced here was merely a scouting force. Defeating Lord Illidan's army will be far more difficult.
Illidan? He's behind this invasion?
He is. Our forces are vast, Arthas. Even now they march upon the Ice-Crown Glacier. You'll never make it in time to save your precious Lich King. Consider this payment for Kael'thas and other insults.
Other insults, like the one Kael'thas had to endure as he found out that Jaina's heart was given to Arthas. Together with Anub'arak, Arthas made his way through deep dark tunnels in an attempt to reach Icecrown before it was too late. They reached the Frozen Throne just in time, and the Lich King bestowed upon Arthas all the power he could spare. The prince knew exactly what he had to do: eradicate those that stood in his way, and on the battlefield Kael'thas got his chance for revenge. After you disappeared in so cowardly a fashion at our last confrontation, I admit, I'm as surprised to see your face again, Kill. Don't be upset that I stole Jaina from you. You should let that go and move on. After all, there's so much left in this world for you to enjoy. Oh wait, no there isn't. Damn you to hell, Arthas Menethil, Kael'thas snarled, trembling with outrage. You've taken everything I ever cared for. Vengeance is all I have left. Kael'thas and Arthas shot spells at each other, while Arthas tried to taunt the mage and break his concentration. I took your woman, he said, continuing to try and anger the mage, although he knew, and probably Kill knew, that Jaina had never belonged to the elf. I held her in my arms at night. She tasted sweet when I kissed her, Kael. She loathes you now, Kael'thas replied. You sicken and disgust her, Arthas. Anything she felt for you has since turned to hatred. Arthas tried to break Kael'thas' concentration to anger the mage, but instead it backfired and it made him wonder about the past, about how Jaina regarded him. This hesitation was all Kael'thas needed in his battle, and he shot fireball after fireball until Arthas and him, Frostmourne and his staff, they clashed. The rune blade was about to break the staff easily, but it did give Kael'thas enough time to draw his sword. The sword of his father and his ancestors, fellow Milorn, also known as Flamestrike. It was broken by Frostmourne before, but now reforged with magic, hatred, and a burning need for revenge. Arthas believed that the weapon would be weaker after mending it, but Elves' blade worked differently. They actually get stronger from reforging, as Arthas soon found out when the blade was able to hold up against his own Frostmourne. Snarling, Kael'thas lunged in, thinking to deal the death blow. But Arthas remembered training with Muradin long ago, and the dwarf's favorite trick suddenly filled his mind. He pulled his legs in tightly and kicked Kael'thas with all his strength. The mage let out a grunt and was hurled backwards into the snow. Gasping, the Death Knight flipped to his feet, hefted Frostmourne with both hands and plunged it down. Somehow, Flamestrike was there. The blades again strained against each other. Kael'thas' eyes burned with hatred. But Arthas was the stronger in armed combat, stronger with the stronger sword, despite Kael's gloating about how fellow Milorn was reforged. Slowly, as Arthas knew must happen, Frostmourne descended towards Kael'thas' bare throat. She hates you, Kael whispered, and Arthas cried out, fury blurring his vision for a moment, and shoved down with all his strength into the snow and frozen earth, since Kael'thas was gone. The Blood Elf Prince had teleported himself away, thinking that he had bought Illidan enough time to reach the Frozen Throne. Even though Arthas was unable to kill the prince, at least the Blood Elf was out of his way for a while, and his final opponent standing in his way of merging with Ner'zhul was none other than Illidan Stormrage, but even he fell to the might of Frostmourne. Arthas left the Night Elf, the demon, to die in the snow as he made his way up to the Frozen Throne. As you probably know, Arthas merged with the Lich King, he claimed its full power, while Illidan survived their encounter. He was picked up by Lady Vash and Kael'thas, who dragged him back to Outland where he could recover and they could make another plan. They had failed Kil'jaeden once again. Kael'thas and his people were still hungry for power, and Illidan's encounter with Arthas would leave a mark on his sanity. However, I'll save that part of the story for next week, since I believe we've been going on for long enough. Next week we'll finish up the storyline, since the Blood Elves and Kael'thas, they had a very big part to play during the expansion, the Burning Crusade. For now though, thank you very much for watching everyone, subscribe if you like my videos, and until next time guys, see ya!